Hi, Craig here from GT Consult, and today we are continuing our discussion on AI models. And we're looking at the multitude of AI models and platforms and how to choose one. And that's not an easy task. We're getting hit with new models on what seems like a daily rotation with improvements, new features, and functionality. When we're talking models, we're talking the likes of GPT-3 and GPT-4, which you've played around with, no doubt, on the OpenAI site. We are also looking at a host of other models like OPT66B. Those of you who haven't heard of it, it's a bit of a mouthful, but that is Facebook's equivalent of the GPT-3 function. There's also the big brother being the OPT175B, but there are a number of other models like Bloom and Flan and Llama and so many more that just seem to be coming out on a regular basis. So how do we even start to compare them? Well, there are some tools online that you can utilize, like nav.dev, where you can compare them. However, that is requiring a cost at this point. Otherwise, you can get onto things like Hugging Face. Hugging Face is Facebook's area that you can play around with any of these interfaces. Now, there are hundreds of models sitting on that site. You could literally spend days, and some of them are focused at image generation, some at looking at sentiment analysis, etc. So you have to be quite careful as to which ones you choose. Obviously, we've all been playing around with OpenAI and ChatGPT, so that interface is available for us. And if you're in the development world, well, then you can get hold of the API as well and make calls against the API. And just so that you know, when you sign up for ChatGPT with a new account, they do give you access for 30 days to free API interaction. The other area that you need to spend a lot of time in is GitHub. And the reason for that is most of these models require setup, they require resources, and you need to understand the ins and outs of setting them up in your own environment. With that being said, well, we need to make a choice somehow. And what metrics do we need to make that choice? Well, firstly, there's ease of use. What setup is required? What team do you need to do that? And what resources, both from a hardware, software point of view, but it's also about how easy is the tool just to use in an out-of-the-box type fashion. The next is performance. And this we're discussing how well they get to an answer that you require. This is still quite hard to understand because this can vary due to the context of exactly what you're asking and how you're asking it. So if you're testing out models against each other, you typically want to ask the same questions. But the other reason that this is quite hard is that each of the models might be created with a specific type of performance in mind. So they might be focused on insights or generation of documentation, etc. The third area around choice is exactly that, the functions. How well these models function at generating data, performing summarizations, looking at insights, building imagery. Remembering once again that some of the models are built with specific needs in mind rather than to be a one-stop shop. However, a lot of them do provide a one-stop shop, but might not necessarily provide the same functionality. And quite importantly for businesses, what is the cost going to be? What's the cost of running? What's the cost of setting up? What's the cost of transacting once that system is in place? Okay, so taking all of that into account, who actually wins this battle? Well, we've got to say that the clear winner right now is GPT-3 and 4. They have a full range of functionality from generative to insights. Summarization is really impressive. As you can see, you generating code, documents, emails, and the like. And it's also openly accessible via the OpenAI site. Pretty much everything is set up for you with the APIs as well. So if you want to make the calls, all of that API is set out. But one of the biggest downfalls, I suppose, for OpenAI is that it's not open source, which a lot of people are flouting as a derogatory statement. It's also considered extremely expensive, and importantly, it's not considered the best choice for sensitive organizational data. You don't want to be passing that into your GPT-3 or 4 on OpenAI because they're collating that data to improve their models. Other models are great at specific functions, such as answering questions for insights, but they seem to lack the same type of functionality that GPT-3 and 4 provide in the holistic sense. So their cognitive abilities to generate well-structured content is not up there with what we're seeing from that OpenAI stack. With that said, setting them up can be an extremely arduous task with a lot of requirements on processing power, configuration, and model training. When we're talking the resources, do yourself a favor, go and have a look at some of those GitHub sites, and it requires extensive infrastructure for you to set up those models. And that's just the initial setup. You then still have to train them. So whilst OpenAI provides a black boxed solution where you can start interacting with it, these others require setup. Yes, you can jump onto Hugging Face and go and test them out where they are running, and you can ask basic questions, but it doesn't provide you with that full interface that OpenAI does. OpenAI, on the other hand, took me about 15 minutes to set up in Azure. And that answers one of my other issues around the sensitivity of data. If you're building your own instance of OpenAI on top of Azure, yes, there's a cost involved, but it opens up the same APIs that you've got with the out-of-the-box product with OpenAI, and at a fraction of the cost, and the data is not extracted from your environment. So it is running on your own version of OpenAI within your Microsoft Azure context. Now, yes, you have to apply for a license in order to do that, and you need to have Azure up and running to do it, but it helps you in terms of that secure data. Either way, the speed that this information is changing probably makes this post irrelevant the minute it's posted. But the point is, it's food for thought. If you need something specific and there are other models out there, it might work for you and for your budget. But for that more holistic experience, I'll be sticking with OpenAI for the time being. Thanks. Hope that helps.